easy to see that many of our K-12 schools are languishing. One recent report evaluated testing outcomes for American students against other industrialized nations, and America's students finished 17th out of 34. Not something to be proud of. This led President Obama to direct more money at the issue, like so many previous presidents before him, rather than looking at the underlying systemic concerns. It's not the amount of money, it's the habit that is being created. While increasing funding can be a component of a solution, it is often not the most vital of the components. Without proper policy driving the expenditures, the money spent can become one more example of how inefficient federal intervention anything can be. President Obama's Department of Education directed $7 billion to a program known as the School Improvement Grants Program, to which the Department of Energy named the 21st Century Community Learning Centers. The funds were directed to states with instructions that the funds should be directed to the poorest performing schools. It sounds agreeable. The measures used to identify the underperforming schools were graduation rates and readiness scores in reading and mathematics. Then, Secretary of Education Arne Duncan said in 2009, quote, "We could really move the needle, lift the bottom, and change the lives of tens of millions of underserved children," end quote. Something that all of us would agree on. The School Improvement Grant Program built on the Race to the Top efforts undertaken during the Bush administration, and the Obama administration efforts doubled the funds for the program. The Department of Education described the purpose of the 21st Century Community Learning Centers in the following way. This program supports the creation of community learning centers that provide academic enrichment opportunities during non-school hours for children, particularly students who attend high poverty and low performing schools. Again, all of these sound laudable. However, according to a report released by the Department of Energy just a few days before the end of President Obama's administration, test scores, graduation rates, and college enrollment were no different in schools that had received these funds from the school improvement grants as those who did not. $7 billion gone. A Washington Post article detailing the report quoted Andy Smarek, a fellow at the American Enterprise Institute, quote, "Think of what all that money could have been spent on instead," end quote. Instead, Mr. Smarek is correct. $7 billion in taxpayer funds were spent without any oversight or careful oversight whatsoever. Congress must re-examine the role of the federal education, because what is being done now does not work. Billions upon billions of dollars. How about if we can't solve it through $7 billion wasting and trying to make people feel good about education, and then that will improve their scores? How about we just get them moving so that we can fight obesity and then cut down on diabetes, disease, other things? Sounds good. Let's talk about that. In 2010, with the assistance of First Lady Michelle Obama, the Let's Move project began with the hope of reducing childhood obesity in America. This is a real problem in Oklahoma. We have one of the largest obesity rates of all of the states. The program, costing as much as $1 billion per year, focused heavily on impressing upon children the need for proper exercise, as well as bringing healthier food options into schools. At first glance, it appears that the Let's Move program produced results. In 2008, U.S. childhood obesity rates nationally were around 16.2%. And during the next 3 years, 18 states saw those rates begin a modest decline, falling in some states by 5%. This reduction could be attributed to the effectiveness of the program or a cultural change in how people view health choices and how they view their eating habits. But it should be noted, regardless, that this decline was already begun by the time the Let's Move program was even enacted. Overall, and sadly, in the latest statistics, U.S. childhood obesity rates did not decline and, in fact, have risen to 17.2% in the last statistical year. There are many, many things that we can continue to go on and talk about in waste. Let's end with this one. Want people to eat healthy, eat fruits and vegetables, something that sounds good? Then how many of you would be influenced by people dressing up like Fruit of the Loom, outfits like green beans, grapes, tomatoes, and going to college campuses and then just seeing the sight of these people wearing these costumes go, you know, I think I need to eat some grapes or vegetables. That's what this program did, and wasted $14.7 million of your money. It's called the Get Fruved Project, not making it up. Not only did this program waste $14.7 million, it's still being funded by your tax dollars. U.S. Department of Agriculture awarded $4.9 million a year for this initiative, led by students and researchers at 4 American universities, which are the University of Tennessee, South Dakota, West Virginia, and University of Florida. The Fruv website reports that its goals are, our students are the best teachers. This is why Fruved has sophomores and juniors at each school, peer monitoring first-year students, helping them live a healthier life during their first year of college. And that includes dressing up in these outfits. $14.7 million. There are things that the federal government has responsibility for, and there are things that it does not. Abraham Lincoln said it best in a paraphrase where he said, the things that we can do ourselves, the government ought not to interfere. The things that we cannot do collectively, the government might have a role. We know the government may have a role in education, certainly with education funding and helping our facilities and our institutions. However, we do not need to waste $70 billion. Imagine what that could do. We will never change this idea if the American people do not demand of us to stop such waste. That when people come and they, with straight faces and PhDs, argue for dressing up in outfits, we have to push back on that and say $20 trillion in debt, a weakened military, roads and bridges that are falling down, an infrastructure that needs improvement, modernization in our skies for the Federal Aviation Administration, so many areas that the government truly does have a function and role. We will never get to it with asparagus urine studies and dressing up as fruit and vegetables. Mr. Speaker, my hope is that all of us as Americans can find those overlapping circles and fight this absolute absurdity of waste in government, be responsible with the American tax dollars, and sustain our great republic for the future of our children. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I yield back my time.